I do not need to tell you or anyone that the cost of housing in this country is ridiculous these days. And when we think about it from a generational standpoint, younger people they're not making buckets of money and they want to begin their careers and in their lives in a place that is not necessarily their parents' basement. So, lots of ideas out there. One of them is co living. And we're going to have a conversation about what that could look like in Canada over the course of the next bunch of years. We're going to talk to Robert Barnard. He is the CEO of an organization called Toboggan Flats. And they have an interesting idea to utilize underutilized office space and make room for young people in a co living arrangement. He joins us now to talk about how that works. Hello there.
Yeah, great to be here, Bruce.
Give me the definition here of what you mean by co-living. What does this actually look like when you're in market,
Hmm.
when people are sleeping under your roof?
Yeah, co-living means you've got a private room, secure, safe, good, uh, all the kind of need in your, bed, desk, sofa, fridge, and you're ready to go and then you share facilities. So you're sharing, in our case, you're just outside the door, you're going to be sharing a washroom, much like you do in your family home. And you're going to be sharing kitchens, you're sharing laundry, and sharing times, good times. Sharing connections, sharing learning, sharing access to downtown. So it really is shared living, much like we see with seniors, much like we see with students.
Mm.
And we're saying, why can't anyone else live that way in Canada?
Certainly the dorm culture. I was in a dorm, I don't know, 6 months ago that was set up. It had 4 or 5 rooms, lock off
Yeah.
rooms, common kitchen, common living room. When I look on your website, the aspiration for the aesthetic and the services that you're talking about well exceed what any young person should ever expect from a dorm room.
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at young professionals, young workers with Toboggan Flats. That's the group that really needs to get into the downtowns of cities to really boost the economy of cities. But our rooms are sort of, 50% bigger than a typical student housing would be, with sort of nicer, queen size beds as opposed to singles, like that kind of stuff. So the goal is to make it a nice place to live, but it's also, as you said right off the top, we need to help young people save money if they have any hope of actually getting a house or buying a house down the road. So that's the real challenge for this generation right now is that they're stuck in a place where incomes are still pretty low and costs have accelerated, and they're stuck in the middle of that particular crisis.
One of the parts of your model is looking at the inventory of office space and
Mm,
converting that
yeah.
to residential, and specifically residential that's co-living in nature. What does that need to look like in order for it to be a fit? Is there a particular floor plate? Is there a particular
Mm.
location? How big a task is it to convert an office to something residential?
Yeah, great questions. The so it, we call it an office to co-living conversion, and that's different than a typical conversion. So the nice thing about co-living is that, much like you said, in dorms and other types of congregate living models, seniors residences, those kinds of things, you have your bedrooms around the windows. If you think about a typical office building with offices around the windows, turn those to bedrooms. We already have bathrooms in office buildings. We have fire escapes in office buildings, elevators in office buildings. So we're going to reuse all of that, which means we're going to be putting less plumbing infrastructure around the windows because the kitchens and washrooms are shared in the center of the building. That means that a lot more floor plates work for co-living conversion than a typical apartment conversion or condo conversion. And because we're reusing more stuff, that means we can actually do it faster. So our contractors are saying around 9 months of construction to go from an office to a place where young workers can live downtown. So very, very fast build because we're just, I don't understate it, but it's drywall. It's putting in really nice washrooms, really nice kitchens, so that everyone can actually share that and build that sense of community.
How do you think about amenities. So on the student
Mm.
side, there's virtually nothing, but they can go to the phys ed center and there's a bar they go to. On the other end of the continuum, young people are living in these super fancy condo towers with swimming pools and gyms and yoga rooms and co-working spaces and all those sorts of things. How do you bridge that gap? What are the sorts of things that you think this demographic is really going to want a foosball table or a fill in the blank here? But the reality is we're in an office tower.
Yeah, it's I think when we talk about buildings, we often talk about amenities as physical things. In co-living, the key part of what co-living is about is building community. So the foosball table might be there. The foosball tournament is what builds a community.
Right.
So we create amenities that really bring people together, and we create events that really bring people together. We also, a building doesn't sit on isolation. It's part of the neighborhood. So how do we go to the bars in the neighborhood? How do we go to the coffee houses in the neighborhood? How do we bring in bring in the yoga teachers from the neighborhood, bring them into our space so that we're using the neighborhood to build a sense of community and bring people together. We always talk about how important it is to have five friends.
Mm.
Five friends doesn't mean you put a foosball table in and you end up with five friends. You actually
Right.
have to generate the activities to bring people together in a community, and that's what makes co-living so special. Is it's not just a micro apartment where you're by yourself and you're trying to find that you don't talk to anyone in the elevator. It starts with community and then it builds from there.
I lived in residence in first year
Yeah.
university and it was transformative. I loved it. There was a serendipity that had me connect with people who I probably never would have met otherwise, and they are friends of mine to this day.
Yeah.
When I finished school, though, I did live in a house. It was co living, but they were people I had chosen, people who I knew quite well. And I
Yeah.
had probably less tolerance at that life stage for the people who load the dishwasher wrong. And by the way, there's a right and a wrong way to load the dishwasher. What is different about that life stage that people, they're young professionals, they're going to be maybe less interested in drinking 4 nights a week. They're going to be a bit more sensitive to the volume that music is played at. How do you bridge that part to where people's life is different than it was as a undergrad with the keggers?
Yeah, great question. And I think if we look at a floor in an office building that we're going to turn to co-living, we subdivide that floor into we call them flats, but they could be just like you had, five or six people living in that house after you graduated. They're all now on the same floor as opposed to on multiple floors. So for one thing, if you've got five friends and you want to move into Toboggan Flats, that's good. We've got a flat for you and your friends. A lot of people don't have that. They're coming into a city. They don't have family there. They don't have networks there. And it's special. It's also really good for that group. We'll use, there's great, AI technology. There's other ways of doing roommate matching now that didn't exist when kind of you and I were at those university residences. So we can do a really good job of matching people. And then we curate it. We've got people on staff just there to help to build the community to make sure that people are getting along. And even better, go back to your house after you graduate, we'll clean the bathrooms.
Oh, fantastic. That's worth everything. Every
And
single thing.
they're gonna be really nice bathrooms. So I met a young person out in Halifax. I was just at this great conference called the Art of City Building out there. And he came up to me after my talk and he said, "I love this. Is there any way that I could get a bathroom in my room?" And I said to him, "Where do you live right now?" I said, "Well, I live at home, my family, but I'm trying to move out." And I said, "Do you have a bathroom in your room?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, here's another thing. Do you want to save? I can give you a bathroom in your room, but it's going to cost you $10,000 a year."
Yeah,
And he said, "Okay,
there's your
maybe,
answer.
maybe
I'll
I'll
deal
save
with
the
what I've
10
got.
grand
Let's
and walk
keep
out my room and go to the
let's
bathroom."
keep on this cost topic. What do you project will be the rent for one of these places? And I'm sure it differs by city, but in a major
It
center,
does. Yeah.
Toronto, Calgary, Vancouver, Montreal, what's the dollar amount that you're projecting for a room?
First part is these are all furnished, includes all your utilities, internet, and the community as a part of it. So just taking that into consideration. But we're looking at somewhere in the kind of $1,100 to $1,300 a month, all in is the model. And typical, Toronto, Halifax, where I was, Vancouver, Calgary, Ottawa. These are the cities that we're looking at right now. Looking at a studio apartment up and around the $2,000 mark, sometimes more, and certainly studio apartment downtown, right where the jobs are, even more expensive. So our goal is to be at 30% of the average salary of a 25 to 34-year-old in
Mm.
Canada. That's our target price for those cities.
What has the reaction from landlords been? So you're going in and you're saying, I know you've got underutilized space here.
Mhm.
We'd like to convert it. And there's going to be a bunch of yahoos mingling with the, I don't know, the call center that you've got on the 14th floor. Are
Mhm.
they super interested because they need to get rid of that inventory, or there's some concerns they raise?
You mean Yahoo's the people working there or the people
No, the
moving?
people in
I'm just kidding.
the people who are living there. I mean, they're
So
young
yeah,
people.
they're
I'm teasing.
they're no. Well, it's funny because they actually, when I get this question quite a bit, and I do get the question from landlords, is that there's a mental model around young people, maybe back to the time when they were young, where they think it's just party all the time. That's just not the case. Like this is a group who, one, they need to make money. They're now out of school. They're working hard, and as you said, maybe they'll go out on a Friday night. What's great about this concept, and I think it still takes work to get the landlords on our side, but the this it flips the clock of the building. So your call center on the 11th floor, it actually what it does is, when people are working, they're not in the building. They're in the building from 6 p.m. to 8 in the morning, which is when no one else is in the building. So there's not as much mixture in the building. I think the other one is we reduce the density of the building. You can fit sometimes 3 times more workers in an office space than what we're going to have as people who are living and co-living.
Right.
So
Interesting.
less people, less traffic, and for the landlord, more money. So that should be pretty desirable for them.
What's the rule on pets?
To be determined. It's something that we're looking into. Um, so we don't know yet. It depends on who's moving in. Depends on there's some other depends on the city that we're in and how licensing goes. I think we're trying to find a way to be as open as we possibly can. We're also acknowledge allergies and other things, and that we want to make sure that people are respectful for those who are in their flats or on the floors that they're in.
To make this work at scale, you're going to need lots of things. One of them is capital. How have those
Mm.
conversations been? This is not a conversation people are used to having. I'm sure the model is something that potential funders are picking through and checking your assumptions 14 times. What's the appetite been?
At least 14 times. The appetite's been good. As I said right off the top, we have senior housing in Canada, we have student housing in Canada. Both of those are co-living formats. So investors understand those, and they're investable, sectors
Yeah.
that they understand.
Typically purpose
Um,
built, though. Typically purpose built. How big of a
yeah,
leap is it to move from purpose built to conversion?
well, it's less money, so that's good for the investor. So less money, the building already exists, so in some ways that mitigates the risk because you don't have to unforeseen things happen on a new build project. So the building's there, the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is there, so that should mitigate the risk. It's also of course, there's an environmental benefit to not knocking it down and starting over again. We've already, poured the carbon into that concrete, so let's reuse it. So that's been a real benefit to investors as well.
Very interesting. Robert, thank you for joining us to talk about co-living. I appreciate it.
Amazing, great to be here. Thanks so much.
Robert Barnard is the CEO of Toboggan Flats. They are in the development phase of creating a network of co-living spaces for young people across this country.